Welcome to Constructive, a podcast about construction, technology, and whatever else comes up. Hope you enjoy. Thanks for joining me, everybody. I got Todd Wynne with me today, and just kind of have heard a lot about him from different people, and called him up and asked him if he'd come on. He said yes, and he's got an awesome background. But before we get into your background, Todd, I'd love to just talk about my idea for this podcast. Calling it Constructive was, the term kind of means helpful, building up. And I just have my personal value system has to do a lot with unselfishness and being a servant in the industry. I know it's a little bit counterculture these days. People like to take care of themselves and think about themselves first, and I understand that too, and it's important to take care of yourself. But my personal value system is about meeting other people, seeing how I can help them, see what I can do to be of service to the construction industry. And I kind of got that vibe from you. I wonder if you resonate with that, and would you talk about how you implement that value system in your everyday life at work?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Seth. I appreciate you calling me up and inviting me to have a discussion with you. And I think you hit the nail on the head of this entire industry is built on teamwork and collaboration. I always like to say that people don't build projects, teams do. So I think that you're spot on that we can't have a selfish mindset in this industry and actually be successful. I mean, throughout my career, I've learned that this is an industry of relationships. It's built on trust. It's built on collaboration. It's built on communication. So I think that's the underlying foundation, if you'll let me throw in some building puns throughout. But we can't, our limitation of going vertical is limited by the foundation of the camaraderie and teamwork we have in all aspects of construction.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Do you have to kind of set aside that as a priority for you to build relationships and network with people? I mean, how do you do that when it's like this time, maybe at parts of your career, that's not billable. I got to go bill to a project, or how do you kind of make that a priority in your life?
Yeah, it's definitely much more intentional now than it was early in my career. It was early in my career, it was very just organic, and it was through passion and just being able to speak with other thought leaders that had similar ideas or aspirations or vision. But now that has to happen to be able to even crowdsource the industry for all the new opportunities, all the new technologies, all the new processes. Over a decade ago, you could keep up with all that was happening in relation to construction technology or innovation or finding a better way to build. You could keep up with it pretty well by yourself. Now you can't anymore. I can't. I mean, there's so much investment coming into our industry and so many new things. From smart materials to hardware, software, new process. I mean, I think it's a must. So I make it a point to actually go and immerse myself in hallway conversations at conferences or some peer groups in the industry, but you have to have that network.
Totally. Have you had any mentors in your life that really left lessons with you, or you don't have to name names, but what kind of things have people passed down to you that you're now trying to pass down to others?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am without some of the mentors in my life. And I will name their names because they deserve the recognition. I mean, all the way from early in my construction journey when I started in operations, Forrest Harrison was my general superintendent, and he was a great mentor to me on I called him the construction Jedi. Forrest was the kind of guy that you could walk the job with and had this level of intuition and understanding of, I mean, he'd be pointing over here and say, he wouldn't even be looking at it. He'd say, we're going to have a problem in 2 weeks due to the flow line of the schedule right here. And I'm like, how do you even know that? And it's because of years of tacit knowledge of just, the art of building through just so many at bats on so many projects. And then, but then from other thought leaders in my career, like Joe Williams, my first boss at RO, who taught me, the enemy of a great idea is 5 good ideas. Like, we get excited and we start grabbing onto so much. And he taught me how to be ruthless when it comes to prioritization and focus. So yeah, that's just a couple, but man, there's been many. And that's why I'm here, Seth. I want to pay it forward in any way I can so that we can all move forward together.
That's awesome. Appreciate it. So you did give me a little bit, and you've talked a little bit about your background too, but I'd love for you to do as long of a version of your background and how you ended up where you are now. And if you can mix in little stories about ways that you push technology into construction and topical stuff, because I know that's my other main topic here, everybody. The first one really is about my values and being constructive in the construction industry. The other one is really technology. It's just super interesting to me. I think it's going to change the industry. I think it already is. I think it has been, but it's going to even more, especially as we get these things like AI and robots and drones and all that stuff. But so mix that in if you're able to, but give me the longer version of your background. Where did you start? How did you end up in this specific niche of construction? And go for it.
Yeah. Lot of happenstance, a lot of serendipitous opportunities, intersections. That's what's so fun about life, right? Is like we just don't know what's in front of us. So the best mindset we can have is let's do the best we can with what's in front of us, because we don't really know. We don't know who's sitting in the back of the room when you're speaking, right? And what opportunities will exist. So as I mentioned, I started in operations early on in my career. And even before that, I actually in high school was a big golfer, and I loved golf courses, and I wanted to build my own golf course. So went into college for landscape architecture, then realized, wait a second, I have to learn to draw by hand. Well, that's not for me. So actually switched to general business. My father convinced me that. He was like, hey, you can go build golf courses. You can do anything with having a good sense of understanding of business. So got my first degree in business, ended up graduating during the 08-09 recession, and ended up finding some part-time interning opportunities with a friend that was in the industry, which gave me a love for construction. So I ended up going back to school for construction science and got that degree, and then interned and became fully employed with Balfour Beatty, and then built a couple buildings across North Texas. But I think I was mentioning it to you before we got on the show, Seth. Like, I was the guy in college who was modding his Xbox to beat his friends at Halo. So I've always been kind of a nerd at heart, a technologist at heart, trying to find a better way to achieve our desired outcomes. So I introduced some things on my projects with guys like Forrest. I'll give you a story, because this actually changed the trajectory of my career. This was before the iPad, before Surface tablets, before any of the Android tablets. This was back when, there were things like Panasonic Toughbook, which was still a PC that ran in a Windows operating system. And then we also had these things like that were called motion tablets. They were built for the healthcare industry, and they were like, $2,500 a piece. So definitely not that affordable and scalable. But Robert Fail, my project manager at the time, he was someone else that was a mentor to me. And he invested in some of these because he said, I bet Todd can figure it out. And so I got the motion tablet that ran Windows XP. Think about this for a second. This is not built for a deskless worker. This is meant for a mouse and a keyboard. But I ended up getting the entire plan table loaded onto the device, and I'm out on site. I'm standing next to Forrest. We're pouring a pan deck in Texas, so it was super hot in summer. And I said, Forrest, check this out, man. I got the plan table in the palm of my hand. And he said, well, that's cool, Todd. Pull up S302. Because we were in the structural phase. He wanted me to pull up a structural drawing. And he had his 11 by 17 set right in his hands, and he just flips right to it. Well, I'm sitting there, I got to use a stylus, and I click the start menu in Windows XP. I'm looking for Windows Explorer. I open it up in Bluebeam Review, and then I'm just sitting there trying to find S302, and I can see him tapping his foot, Seth. And I'm like, hurry, hurry. And I finally get it open, and I go, look at that. Here it is. And he said, well, that's great, Todd, but if it's not as fast and as efficient as this, it'll never work. In that moment, Seth, it changed my career in my mindset, because I knew that this was the future, having a digital. I mean, we were having to walk back and forth between the trailer whenever we're doing any type of inspection, and we could only physically carry the discipline that was on the critical path of inspection. So if I was checking in wall for electrical and the plumber came up to me with a question, I'd have to say, well, I'll get back to you after lunch, right? And now I knew that by having all the answers in the palm of our hand, that was a better way. But Forrest was right. No one was going to adopt it. No one was going to use it unless it truly made their life easier. And that navigation experience was not easier. So that's when it kind of put me on this mission of like, how do we bridge the gap between this BIMtopian world that some of us that are visioning the future of construction see, but actually bridge it down to the construction worker with the wrench in hand, who stands between the successful execution of the project that's been coordinated, designed. I mean, at the end of the day, it's that worker that determines success of the project based on the install. So then I started getting some more presentations, speaking about this at symposiums. I was even a little bullish to the BIM community. I was saying, metaphorically, kind of punching them in the face, saying, hey, you guys are doing some really cool stuff in the job trailer, but we're taking the model and we're putting it through the deli slicer and we're spitting out paper that is literally not that big of an advancement from what the pyramids were built off. It was just papyrus. And so it's like, what are we doing? And then Joe Williams with RO was sitting in the audience, and he came up to me after this BIM symposium and said, why don't you come over to RO? And he had a real strong background in the architecture, engineering side, even worked for the Corps of Engineers, like the owner side. So it was kind of a match made in heaven of like, I was the C and he was the AE and the O. So we kind of complemented each other. And we went on this mission together of taking that model world and bridging it to the field. And then that leads me to really trying to find the right software and hardware to promote that environment to work. And I mean, I remember it like it was yesterday when the iPad came out. It was April 3rd, 2010. And the news was all making fun of like, oh, it's just a big iPhone. And I was sitting there going, no, hey, this is the first multi-gesture driven device where the UX was actually designed for a deskless user. And that's what our entire workforce is. It's a deskless workforce. So we have to bring the answers in an accessible, reliable, durable. The battery life was good compared to the other tablets that we were trying out in the field. It was rugged when we put a OtterBox case on it or whatever case that gave it the right protection. And then, yeah, we were really blessed with partnering with Apple early on, and they did a nice little case study on us that's on their website today. But then after that, it didn't, and you know, once you start bringing the field into a digital world, it creates a foundation that you can start building off of. And that's where, you know, started trying other ways to gain, to really serve up that accessibility of information. And so we were super early with drones. We were actually the first company in Texas to have drone insurance. It had to be a custom policy created by our insurance company. And so we started with the DJI Phantom 1 that, you know, you had to attach the GoPro and you didn't even know if you were capturing the right footage, right? You had to pray and then bring down the SD card, pull it out and see. And I mean, then over time, those flying superintendents changed the way that we had visual intelligence a top-down view of material laydown, logistics flow lines, being able to overlay production tracking. But then we started working really close with these software and hardware companies, and that's when we started entrepreneuring some of our own solutions in-house. And trust me, Seth, there were plenty of failures along the way. But we had this one idea called Project Atlas that was essentially, what's really interesting about it, Seth, is I think we were a little too early. I think I know what the Vikings feel like whenever they heard that Christopher Columbus discovered the New World. like, like we were a little too early, but it's this premise that, hey, we build in space and time, these two dimensions. What if we organized all of our information based on those two dimensions? So it was really nothing more than like Google Maps for construction. We geo-referenced the model, the plans, to real world coordinates. And the same way that you would search for your closest neighborhood Starbucks in Google Maps, we were allowing you to do that with, a dimension of a room or a toilet or a door. So that was an exciting little entrepreneur company and project that we launched in October of 2017, and it was acquired by Bluebeam in June of 2018. And then I spent 2.5 years as vice president of strategy and partnerships over at Bluebeam, and then came back to RO to lead innovation 3 years ago. So sorry for the long-winded.
Oh, that was exactly what I was looking for, and I loved it. Can I throw a little curveball in here? Because you were making me think about Apple with the iPad. Can we spend 5-10 minutes talking about the vision? Because
Yeah.
I'm just curious if it, to you, seems like something similar. Like, when I look at it, I have a friend that actually worked on it, and so I know some of the capabilities, and I'm just like, man, if that could be taken into the field on a construction project and you could overlay design with the actual what exists, you could see. I mean, I don't know. What do you think about the vision? Do you think it's a game changer?
So I've been playing with it.
Awesome. Nice.
I picked mine up on Saturday, and I probably have about just over 10 hours in it so far. And we've been on this journey for a while for different VR, AR, really now MR, mixed reality headsets. I mean, I remember back when Palmer Luckey was developing Oculus, and we got the original dev kit one. I was one of the original Google Glass beta testers. We had the HoloLens 1, HoloLens 2, all the Oculus since Meta acquired them, and then lots of other things like the Epson Moverio. For those of you listening that are old school AR glasses, from the Magic Leap 1 and 2, we actually have the Magic Leap 2 deployed in pilots with a software company called Argyle right now, an augmented reality company. So to answer your question though, Seth, I think that it is, and leave it to Apple. I mean, they're the company that delayed putting NFC in their phones, 8 years after it was already been in Android phones for a year. And it was because it just wasn't to that seamless experience point yet for Apple's threshold of when a new feature gets added into their device. I think that this is the most complete headset I've ever tried. I can tell you that. So it's incredible. The eye tracking technology is revolutionary. So yeah, when it comes back to your question of like, can you imagine these being deployed? Yes and no. And here's why. Because we can do some really cool stuff with some advanced hardware on a project. But the way that we really move the needle in this industry is through two words. They both start with S, and that's simple and scalable. And the challenge we've had with a lot of these devices is the scalability and the simplicity, like actually setting up the files correctly of the design files to get them to work inside the headset. There's a high technical literacy like previously. There's some I had a great call with Resolve yesterday, a company that's trying to do exactly that, is make things so simple where you just take the RBT file, drag it in, and then all of a sudden it works. All those vertices that actually usually crash on a VR headset, they're, using edge computing and other techniques. We're seeing this start to come to life. The big challenge, though, is always going to be, how do we make it scalable and so simple that it can just truly change the way we build for the better? And that's where I get really passionate, because we can do some incredible things with the right people and the right project with the right investment, but that doesn't change the industry. That's what I call Hollywood BIM, when I'm more in love with how do we create true evolutionary change.
Cool. Since we're on that topic of just kind of specific hardwares and softwares and stuff, I wonder if I could also ask about robots, because you mentioned it a little bit before we started this, but I love robots. I think they're awesome. And I see this kind of, like you mentioned, BIMtopia. I think of like a drone robot-topia, where every construction project has like a dockable drone. I mean, we're already very close to this, but a dockable drone that can go inside and outside. I don't know if that's really, and like pre-program its entire flight map, and just it's automatically in the spec book, like have this thing on your site and capture every single day, upload it for the entire team, and then you've got like a working, living as-built that has a digital twin of exactly what's in the field. Everybody who's remote can talk about the field just the same. I don't know. What do you think about that future? Is it realistic? Is it soon?
Yes,
Go ahead.
100%. And you were describing it spot on. I mean, first, and I encourage anyone who's listening, the first place to always start is, don't be obsessed with the solutions. Be obsessed with the problems. And one of the greatest problems in our industry is that our subject matter experts can't be everywhere at once. I mean, the way that we actually inspect right now is with eyes and fingers, right? We physically have to be present. And what you were just describing even is what I call passive data collection. Like, we need the ability to have the actual conditions that are occurring on a project collected passively. Like right now, you see these 360 softwares and hardware have blown up, over the past 5 years, and they're great. But the problem is, it takes a person off the build to go physically capture the data. And we're at the point now where, we got Roombas cleaning our houses autonomously, Seth. Like, don't we deserve that same capability in our workplace? And that's something I used to talk about a lot. Like, do you remember, like, when we used to go to our parents' offices as kids, like, the workplace had the more advanced technology than our homes, like the intercom system, the fax machine. It completely inverted whenever, really, you can go back to around 2007. It was whenever smartphones took off. That democratized this foundation for on-demand everything in our lives. And we've become so kind of used to it, I guess. That's even what's challenging our one of our largest problems to be obsessed with in this industry, is our skilled labor shortage. I mean, and that's why, robots, some people might be listening going, robots, they're going to take our jobs. Well, we are 600,000 people short in North America just today. So if you can tell me which jobs are being taken, I mean, we need to take the 3Ds away: dull, dirty, and dangerous. And I was out at the World of Concrete giving a talk on robotics with some thought leaders, Trevor Owen with Hilti and Henning Rodell with DPR, the lead roboticist over there. And, we were trying to show the industry that, one, robots have been in our jobs for 2 decades now. If you have a tele-operated concrete pump on your job, then you're using a robot. If you have robotic total stations, if you have Husqvarna demolition bot, I mean, we've had these. They're just the evolution of the power drill, really. It's just a new tool that is allowing us to build safer, with higher quality and more precision. So yeah, it's funny. I can go down a couple tangents here, Seth. Like the future is being able to empower subject matter experts with more of a pulse on where they're winning and losing according to the plan, because that's what construction is. Good construction is good planning and then working that plan. But sometimes we don't have even a grasp on how we're doing relative to the plan. So I think that by leveraging technology to bring just that pulse of understanding, because we know that there's only so much time in a day, and we want to make sure that we're focused on the MITs, the most important things that are going to move us towards the greatest outcome of achieving our plan. So yeah, I think there's opportunity for passive data collection, but I also think there's then moving to more of the cobots, which the collaborative work producing robots, where we're actually pulling humans out of harm's way, letting them focus on other aspects of the build, and letting a robot be placed within that environment. And by the way, none of this was even thought feasible, even 5 years ago. And it's because every project we build, as you know, is a prototype. Robotics have been used in factories and manufacturing controlled environments for decades to build cars and widgets and have you. But our industry comes with a level of adaptability needs that have never existed before in robotics, but they do now with embodied AI. So there's some cool companies you can check out, like Figure is one. They just launched a video of a robot using essential visual learning, using computer vision. It watched 10 hours of video of a human making coffee, and then it could make coffee. And it's a bipedal humanoid robot. And then, of course, Tesla Optimus and others that are pushing forward on that. But with the embodiment of AI in robotics comes adaptability, which means, yes, they will be able to help us build safer.
It's awesome. Why do you think construction companies, maybe construction in specifically, why should they invest in technology? I mean, I came into the industry similar timing as you, and I've told this story on the podcast before, but when I first got started, I was going to companies that were completely on paper, and they were trying to get me to help them digitize things. And that just meant scanning paper from a trailer somewhere, and
Right.
I was like, wait, because I went to school, like you were saying, I learned how to draft by hand. I also learned how to use AutoCAD. I also even learned how to do some 3D modeling in my college. And that's now, a long time ago, 15 years ago.
Right.
So I'm kind of like, I got into the industry and I was just like, this is really where the construction industry is. And even now I'm still like there's some really forward-thinking construction companies out there. I don't want to disparage. And there's some creative people like me and you that I love talking with. There's tons of those, but there's still a contingent.
Not enough though, Seth. Right.
Yes, there's a contingent of the construction industry that still likes things a little bit old school. Why do you... Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, sorry. I'm so excited to jump in.
Please jump in. Please jump in.
I think we got to break a couple things down first to really understand this. One, change is, outside of construction, change is something that humans just naturally don't like, right? Because change comes with potential pain. So if you really, but you also have to understand, well, we have to change because change, incremental change, even the smallest, is progression. And progress accumulated over time is what leads to results and successful outcomes. So we can actually take it the other way. Success is nothing more than the accumulation of progress, but progress can't occur without the slightest bit of change. So one, it's educating people like, hey, there's nothing worse than seeing something you want and never getting it and having that frustration of, why aren't we getting there? And so I think that, but first it's humanizing a little bit, realizing that change sucks. No one likes change. I don't even like change, and I'm an innovator. But what I do like is making life a little better. And that's why also when you said how can we help people understand why it's important to invest in technology, I wouldn't frame it that way. I would say let's convince them to invest in a better way. And that's how we define innovation at RO. Innovation's nothing more than the discovery of a better way. It doesn't have to be digital. It doesn't have to be software, hardware. It could be literally just taking these 8 steps and changing step 7 to step 5 and removing step 4. It could be a change in process. That is now a better way. That is innovative. That you essentially, back to success is the accumulation of progress. It's just looking over your shoulder and saying, hey, we were here, now we're here, because we accumulated all these little micro changes. And that's what really advancement is when you break it down. So if people can understand that, hey, it's not about investing in a shiny object. It's about investing in the discovery of a better way to achieve the desired outcomes that you're setting out to achieve. And if I don't think anyone would argue with that, right? Like, who doesn't want to find a better way to achieve their goals? And that's where, I have people all the time, Seth, that'll come to me and say, how do I make my company more innovative? And what I tell them is, if you're trying to be innovative, then you're actually doing it wrong, because innovation is not an input. It's an output. It's an outcome. Now, there's things that you can focus on that are inputs to innovative outcomes and innovative outputs. And throughout my career, I've been trying to collect what those things are so that I can then be deliberate about encouraging our focus and attention over a period of time around those inputs. So, like, what I like to use is like a cake analogy, or actually, what's a food that you like, Seth?
Yeah, mac and cheese.
Mac and cheese. So if we were going to create the innovation, like, best recipe of mac and cheese, well, then here would be some of the ingredients. And I'm going to use mac and cheese as the metaphor, but this is really the inputs, the ingredients needed to create an innovative outcome of the best mac and cheese. The first is curiosity. You got to be curious. You got to believe that a better way potentially exists before you'll ever discover one. So if you're too blinded by, like, I'm not creative, that's a mental block. Just saying you're practicing something that you're going to continue to get better at if you're saying I'm not creative. And if you're not curious to believe that, hey, I think there's a better way to do this, well, that's the first step on the journey. The next step is courage. You got to try something new. And sometimes you got to be the first one dancing when no one else is. And that's really scary, right? Because as humans, we don't want to be out alone dancing. We want to be dancing with the rest of us. But these are some of those inputs that are needed. The third is perspective. And you started this talk with the importance of networking, the importance of togetherness and team. The diversity of perspective, the range of perspective that knowledge is applied through, actually is one of the largest inputs to coming up with the discovery of a better way. And then as you're using these things like curiosity, courage, and perspective, you have to be obsessed with your speed of learning. The most innovative companies in the world, the most innovative people in the world are the ones that learn the fastest. So that's one thing we talk about at RO, is we know that our people are our greatest asset, but the greatest asset that our people can have is their speed of learning. And then finally, the last ingredient is it's got to be fun and light. You got to keep things fun, because people are more willing to throw out crazy ideas whenever they're having fun doing it. And what we're looking for is not the outer reaches of crazy. We're looking for that in between, the right kind of crazy. Because the first time whenever at RO, I was like, hey, I think we can send a flying camera up to look at the side of the precast panels that are cracked and send that footage back to the engineer. I remember our CEO was like, what? A drone? What? And then we after we had started deploying drones on job sites, we had this one project, Legacy West. It was 12 buildings going up at once, and there were superintendents on each building. But the general superintendent across all, he couldn't be everywhere at once, but that drone gave him an eye in the sky. We actually have a cool case study where we saved hundreds of thousands of dollars on that one project because of that flying better way of visual intelligence. So yeah, so to get your ultimate mac and cheese, those were some of the ingredients that you need to cook it up, or at least that I've been learning. And the truth is, Seth, I don't have it all figured out. I'm learning every day. I'm a lifelong learner, and that's the greatest thing that I can encourage anyone listening to this is be obsessed with learning, because that's the true evolution of humanity. Every time you learn something new, you become a different Seth. You're not the same Seth you were 10 years ago, right? And it's because of the knowledge that you've accumulated and the experience that you've accumulated that's made you into the evolutionary output of Seth today. So, yeah. Anyways, I'll get off that rant.
No, I loved it. I think the only ingredient you're missing there is bacon.
Yeah.
You got it. You got to add bacon, and then you got it all.
You got it, buddy. Always need some bacon on the, maybe that's the fun in life. Throwing some
bacon. There you go, the bacon. Because mac and cheese with bacon, I mean, what, a little jalapeno in there too, or something, I don't know, throw something fun in there. But yeah, I wondered too, I don't have much else, and I just had kind of one last one that maybe you could talk about. What kind of technology you're, like, what are you innovating right now at RO? I wonder too if you could give me a glimpse at your processes. Like, are you mostly in implement? I mean, it sounds like software and hardware. I don't know. Give me kind of your everyday. What are you doing there? What is the latest?
Yeah. So it's exciting because I get to work with some of the most incredible people, and I think, back to where we started. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Right. And activating people with passion. I think one of the most powerful things any company can do is finding a need of the organization and overlaying that with the passion and capability of an individual. I mean, that's where the magic flows. So in the role I'm in, it's really about activating those individuals in those domains. So I oversee 6 departments at RO: IT, quality, operational excellence, research and development, field engineering, and oh my gosh, I'm missing one. IT, quality. Oh, BDC. Did I say BDC? There you go. And I have these amazing generals of all of those departments, and they own 51% of every decision that relates to their department. So part of it is empowerment and ownership. Now, more specifically, the last 3 years, one of the things we've been focused on is innovating at the org structure. And that's something that when people are listening, they might go, what? I thought he was going to name some new software or some new hardware. One thing we had to realize at RO is that what got us here isn't going to get us there. Therefore, we have to actually make sure that, are we even organized correctly to capitalize on some of these new processes, these new technological advancements, these new hardware, softwares? And we weren't. We were organized the way that we built buildings in an analog form. And you saw this organically happen in the industry of like new positions, new job title, like from the BIM guy to VDC to, construction technologist to emerging tech. I mean, we've seen all these positions popping up, and it's like an arms race finding these people, right? Like, who's the hybrid that actually understands construction, but also understands the balance of how we can leverage some of these new innovations. So that's one thing I'm really proud of that we've done, is we've looked kind of honestly and vulnerably inside and said, wait a second, we're not even organized on our org chart to be able to capitalize on where we see the future of construction going. So now we've done that. What we're now doing is we're pushing advancements on passive data collection, on cobots. We're piloting 4 different types of modern robotics right now. And that's one other thing that I got to throw out there is I messed up, Seth, and I've messed up a lot, but one that I really missed big time in my vision years ago was how we connect that Bemtopian world to the real world. I just thought it was about taking the knowledge in BDC and equipping operations with that knowledge. And I was wrong about that. I absolutely believe in that osmosis and that knowledge share, but there was a big part that I was missing, and that was the actual survey and coordinate layout system that we use on site and inside models, and the actual people, the field engineers that are the interstitial layer between the digital world and the real world. So we even took all of our field engineers out from under operations, put them in their own support department, bridge between BDC. So now when it comes to model-based layout, when it comes to having a robotic layout printer print from a design file, we're organized in our org chart to be able to capitalize on these new innovations. And that's something I challenge everyone. You know, you might be in a certain level in your company where, like, I can't challenge the org structure, but you can at least ask questions. You can also, there's one that I always recommend if you're wanting to invoke change in your organization. It's John Cotter's 8 Steps to Change. There's a great, you just Google John Cotter's 8 Steps, and the first 2 are the ones I'll talk about. The first one is you got to create a sense of urgency. No one's going to change unless they feel the urgency that the change is warranted or needed. The second is build a guiding coalition. Do it together. Get other people. Don't be that one voice in your org that's saying we got to do this. You got to get buy-in from someone else. And if you're not getting that buy-in and you've been trying for years, well, then you might be at the wrong company. Again, just know companies like ours hiring. So there's my selfish plug.
That's beautiful. I love it. I wondered if there's anything you want to plug to people. Are there conferences you're speaking at coming up or anything like that?
Yeah, I know there will be. I haven't. I mean, the World of Concrete that I just did a couple weeks ago, that was a fun one. I'm now trying to balance that a little bit. I was on a big speaking circuit a few years back where I was hitting them all, and now I'm trying to. It's fun to go talk about these things, but you gotta actually build more of what to go talk about, right? And we're kind of in a building phase right now. We're in the, you have the forming, the storming, and then the informing. We're kind of in storming right now. We've done the forming, we're storming, and hopefully, in the next year, I know Procore Groundbreak. I did the last 2 years. I've spoken there. I'll probably speak there this year. If they'll have me, we'll see. But yeah, the main thing is, can I share one more thing for the vision? Because I don't think I have this cool idea around a NOC. This is out there, Seth, so hear me out. A network operation command center. You see this at like Mission Control NASA. You see like the railroad industry actually used to have a person on site looking at the serial number of the rail car, logging it, and then now all of that's using computer vision, and there's a command center. I honestly believe that's one thing that we're going to be seeing is with this digitalization and passive data collection around reality capture, we're going to be able to empower more of those subject matter experts to be able to see where they're winning and losing on their project from anywhere in the world. We're even being as bold in our new office renovation to build a NOC, a network operation command center, where we're going to have, anytime our field directors or project directors are not out on site, they're going to have screens all around them showing them real-time video feed, KPIs from all of our source systems feeding our data warehouse, really just simple, green, yellow, red, in relation to this project's green, don't even look at it. This one's yellow, you might want to pull up the camera feed. But that's one little thing I just wanted to throw out there as a nugget for people to chew on of as we move more into this terrible problem that we're experiencing of a skilled labor shortage. We have to think creatively on how to combat that so we can keep up with society's demands and needs. So something to spur some.
Yeah, that's exciting. I like the sound of that. I kind of want to work in a knock. Sit out at my screens and have all the data just coming to me, AI interpreting the drone data and telling me what's important about it. I love the sound.
How you're going to visualize where the actual cobots are working on site. Oh, this one's stuck right now. Send in the service team. I mean, that's where we're headed. So it
sounds awesome. I'm excited to be a part of that future. I really appreciate you coming on here. I hope maybe I can reach out again, and even just as a mentor, I can talk to you, but maybe I'll need to have you back on the podcast once I have something maybe a little more specific to talk about, or maybe you'll have an update in 6 months. But
you count me in, Seth. I'm there.
All right. Thanks again, Todd, and have a good one.
Thanks, man. You too.